everybody, it's your favorite Force Projections, favorite nerd, and today we are looking at Star Wars The Vintage Collection Skywalker of Crait, which was the Force Projection Skywalker. I just got this past week, so I'm anxious to take a look at it. I love this rendition of Luke. But you know where we start, accessories. He comes with two accessories, one lightsaber with the blade with no white bar through the middle of it, which is what I want, and then silver paint, it looks like to me, on top of black plastic with some gold paint kind of added on. Looks good enough. And he'll hold that just fine, and as you saw in the opening footage, he'll hold it with both hands as well if you position it properly. And he comes with a hilt, which is pretty much identical to the lightsaber, except for the blade. And that can hang on his little belt clip here. It's not the best, because the hook is, it's not a problem, but you can see, like, if you're messing with them, it will fall off. But, you know, normal display-wise, you'll be fine. And he'll hold the hilt just fine as well. And let's talk about the figure. So I think the head sculpt for a 3 3/4 is pretty good. I'm pretty lenient on 3 3/4, like kind of like I am with Transformer Legends class figures. Like, it's just you're working with something so small. I think it's pretty good. There's wash on the face. The beard is painted in dry brush. The hair is painted in dry brush. The head, which blew my mind, so to speak, is on a double ball peg, which is crazy. Madness, I tell you. So you get down to there, up to there, attitude, swivel, it all works. It's really good. The tunic and the skin tone are painted on, and it's pretty seamless. And then we have the digital sculpted chest. It's a single ball peg where it meets the hips. So you get a little bit down, a little bit up, not really though, and you get a swivel. Like, the range is there, but the overcoat will kind of keep it from doing so. Which is a softer plastic, and I guess it's technically glued on inside to the tunic, which does give a pretty seamless look. It all looks quite nice, to be honest. The sleeves are all sculpted with kind of wrinkles. It is a bit intense, and like the wrinkles are just sort of sitting like that. I gotta look at the movie again and see if that's how it was. That's not how it is necessarily in my mind. Also, the sleeve angles both face in, and I'm not sure if I looked at the pictures. It seems to be that's how it is, but that looks a little strange to me as well. Then we have this soft piece of plastic here that's floating over top, and that's brown and silver paint painted on, extremely sharp, and the wrinkles and all this stuff look great. The arm is on a disc hinge. It pegs into the chest. You can get up to there, and then the swivel around. The elbow is a single hinge, gets you the 90 degrees, and then it swivels for a bicep swivel where it plugs in, and then the wrist swivel, and that's it for them. And you have two holding hands with basically one accessory. I mean, he comes with two, but he's only going to hold one. But it's 3 3/4. Once again, it's not as like that infraction just doesn't scream out the same way that the 6-inch does. Like, him with a holding hand almost looks like a relaxed hand. You know, I can kind of suspension of disbelief that. So this hand is painted brown, or cast in brown rather. This hand is cast in this beige, I believe, and then the tan is painted on, I think. It's disc hinges for the hips that plug into the upper part. I hate these style hips. Black Series loves them. Vintage Collection loves them. But basically, they'll hinge out to the side. And then if you want to hinge them forward, you have to spin at that joint there, which is the hip joint above the thigh swivel, so that it faces forward, and then hinge it up. And I got news for you, like, it's a kind of a tight tolerance, so ultimately it's not worth the trouble. I'll get it put in some poses here at the end that we can look at kind of utilizing it, but you know, between the cloak and then the balance of the figure because of the ankles, which we'll get to in a minute, I just don't think it's kind of worth putting yourself through it, honestly. The knees, I do like though, single hinge, and then a peg into the thigh here, so you get a swivel there as well if you should need it for balance or something. But what it does do is it creates a pretty seamless leg when standing straight. Like, that looks pretty good. Then down here is all digitally sculpted. That looks good. And then we have the ankles, which swivel. And then you have a tilt up, a tilt down, and no rocker. So it's not really great to have any hip movement anyway, because it'll never look quite right. But it is there engineering-wise. So there he is next to the 5 POA Kylo, and Kylo towers over him. And I'm guessing the vintage collection is probably closer to proper 1/18th scale. So then I went and got the other super kind of hyper articulated Kylo Ren out that I think was like one of the Walmart exclusives, and he towers over him as well. So let's take a look here. How tall is Mark Hamill?
Mark Hamill is 5 feet, 9 inches tall.
How tall is Adam Driver?
Adam Driver is 6 feet, 3 inches tall.
Oh, well, maybe it is more accurate than I think. I don't know. Interesting, though. Final thoughts wise, let's talk about the negatives. 3 3/4 figures or 1/18 scale is kind of a catch-22 at times. Let me make my case. These figures have ankle tilts with no ankle rocker. However, a lot of times they have a hard enough time standing with just the tilts. Sometimes they even have a hard time standing with zero articulation on the ankle whatsoever. So for me, I'm kind of like, I think it's ultimately worth it to sacrifice some of the fluidity within a pose in order to have a little extra articulation and be able to get them to stand properly. That being said, while I believe that excuses the ankles, I don't think it does much for the hips. I honestly think these figures would be just as good, if not better, with ball pegs for hips. They did this with the Marvel Universe 3 3/4 line, and they had a hard time standing, don't get me wrong, but I'm not sure if it was any more or less. And if I was going to be ultimately super fair and super critical, I might say they were probably less stable. But you know, at the same time, include a little stand with a little peg to go in their foot, and it solves all that problem too. So I think they may need to really analyze the ankle and hip articulation in these figures. Positives wise though, I have a lot to report. I think the sculpt is good. I think the paint is better than we expect for a 3 3/4 figure. I didn't even talk about like the kind of weathering on his boots, which looks good. Plus there's paint apps on the lower legs, there's paint apps on the belt, there's paint apps on the face, paint apps on the chest. So they do give it plenty of love, and it is at a more expensive price point, but I do feel like I can see where the money went. We're gonna have a discussion soon about Black Series and the vintage collection in regard to price, bang for your buck, etc., etc., but today's not that day. Just know it is on my radar. So I can recommend this if you're into 3 3/4 figures. Just know it's kind of an advancement on stuff they've done in the past, with the exception of the double ball peg. That's a huge step forward. Not really so much an improvement though, el total, on the entire design. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.